Hi there. We are getting together to do a video recording of the Let's Plan Events webinar content. And then you are going to go to a Let's Plan Events webinar Q&A. Go figure. We're basing this on the idea of the flipped classroom. Have you heard about that? Where participants do like watch a video or do reading or a little of both, answer some questions ahead of time, and then go to a live interactive session where you can ask real questions, where you can answer some questions to show that you are learning and that you've got ideas, and share your ideas with other people. And it makes it a lot more engaging ultimately, especially some of you have maybe planned events before, and so we're hoping that this will be a more engaging way for you to do it. Make note, to get credit for Let's Plan events, you do need to show up and participate in the Let's Plan events webinar question and answer period that you've signed up for. So we'll talk more about that at the end too, to make sure that you know how to sign up for it. But my name is Dawn Walker Elders. I'm the Adult Learning Manager here at Girl Scouts of Maine, and Let's Plan Events. When you log into the Q&A, you are going to see a slide, probably this very same slide, where whoever is hosting the question and answer period is going to ask you about where you are and what you're planning. Because it's really fun to see where people show up. We'll get people from, maybe we'll get people from just one region, but we often, almost always, get people from all over the place. We'll have folks from the county, we'll have folks from Washington County, down east, MDI, we'll have folks from up here in the Rangeley or the Lakes regions, and then, you know, the southern tip of the state, and then of course the Portland area or the Lewiston areas. People from all over. And what's exciting about that is none of us is in competition with each other. We are all here doing great Girl Scout stuff, and so there is no reason in the world why we can't share our great ideas, share our successes, celebrate each other, and then try out some of the things that are working better or working well in other places. So just to get you ready for the live webinar that you'll be participating in, some things to pay attention to ahead of time. Please make sure that you have a microphone that you can use, or that you have a telephone that you can call in with also, so that you can talk and participate, because there's an expectation that you will do that. If you're going to be watching it with a group of people, great. And please make sure that still you have the microphone or the telephone so that you can all talk, but also that you're able to mute it so that people don't have to sit perfectly still and be perfectly quiet during the whole thing. And if you happen to be in a room, maybe you just heard my shoes drop, if you happen to be in a room where somebody's watching television, or you have animals, or there are small children who might come in, or big husbands or other partners who might come in, or birds, or any kind of ambient noise, you want to be able to mute yourself so that the noise doesn't come through and sound like racket on the other end. Because when you're on the other side of the speaker, other people's quiet ambient noise sounds like clatter. And so just to be respectful of each other that way, by using your mute button to keep the ambient space quiet, but then being able to open that mute button so that you can talk and participate, because both of those things are valuable and important. So let's go into this. If you've got a camera with your computer or your cell phone when you log into the Q&A, please do activate that too. It's always lovely to be able to see a face with the voice that you're hearing. That's why I stuck my face on that very first slide, but you won't see me the whole rest of the time. It just becomes distracting. But it's nice for everybody to be able to check in and to have some faces, especially if you do have a group, so that there's that further consciousness that, oh, these are real humans, other humans that are doing what I do, and it's cool. Thank you for watching this today, and know that And thank you for logging into the Q&A when you do. Know that it's exciting to hear what's going on in service units and to hear about events that you've gone to, events that you've got in mind, events that are coming up locally, because some of us, none of us gets all over the state all the time, but some of us aren't able to get to all the events we even know about. And it's just lovely to hear about what has happened at the events, what was good, what you'd want to do differently, and what your plans are for upcoming events, so that we have a sense of what's going on in the world, or at least the world of GSME and Girl Scout events. You received an email that had this attached to it, or maybe embedded in it, but you also received a toolkit attached to that same email, the Let's Plan Events toolkit, and that is a guidebook. I ask you to please, please, please print out at least a couple copies for your committee, but within there are some pages, and we're going to look at the toolkit in just a few minutes, but you'll see there are a few pages in there that are called the Event Planning Checklist. I ask you to please print a copy for every single member of your committee, so that as she or he signs up for one or more responsibilities, she has it on the checklist, and everybody else in the committee will be able to see it. You'll see it's a cool grid-style checklist that I'm very excited about, that I am borrowing from a fellow named Scott Belsky, who wrote a book called Make Things Happen, and it's awesome. Anyway, that toolkit and the checklist specifically is a primary process resource for your committee while you're planning the event, and it's very important for everyone on the committee to have a copy. This webinar will last just a little bit longer than an hour. This is actually my second recording of this same one because I didn't save the first copy. And let that be a lesson to you. When you make something on the computer, save it and then review it. And, don't you hate it when you know something and then you still do it wrong? I do, but hopefully I will remember and do it right this time. To get credit for this course, let there be no mistake. I've said it once, I'm saying it again. To get credit for this course, not only do you need to view this video, but you need to log into the Q&A webinar that you have signed up for. And maybe you've signed up in eBiz, but you haven't signed up in GoToMeeting yet, or GoToWebinar yet, or maybe you've signed up in GoToWebinar, but you haven't signed up in eBiz. Please sign up in both places. That's very important for our record keeping, just to ensure that you get credit for participating. Please sign up in both places. And then the other thing is, if you have come into this, you're coming into this webinar series with questions, write them down right now. Just get started writing down any questions you have about event planning right now, because we may answer them, I may answer them in this next 70 minutes or so, or I may not. And so if I answer them, I want you to go, oh, yay, she answered this, and be able to jot down the answer next to the question. And if you still have questions that are unanswered at the end, I want you to remember those to be able to take them into the Q&A next week and get them answered. But wouldn't it be a drag if a bunch of people showed up with a bunch of questions that had been answered during this, and they suck up all the time in the Q&A asking questions that got answered in this video? So there you go. Let's jump in. Let's start to plan events together. For real. A lot of people ask, not a lot of people, a couple of people ask, but they ask loudly, so it sounds like lots of voices. Some people ask why we ask people to take this class, why we ask people to take this, this course. What do you think? What do you think are some good reasons why we would ask any adult volunteers and any older girls to take workshops on planning events or planning camporees? No, I'm absolutely not a fan of being a burden to anyone. Our thing really in adult learning here and as humans is to help people and to connect people, very Girl Scout-like. Adult learning in Girl Scouts is certainly to provide you with best practices, ideas that others have found work well to help you in your process to build girls of courage, confidence, and character. Absolutely. But also, adult learning is here for your protection. We share agreed on processes, some dictated by law or the insurance company, some by our board of directors, some by staff, some by volunteers, and some based on experience. And those processes are to prevent injury and accidents as much as possible and to minimize the consequences of those that do still happen. The consequences to you, to your committee members, to your service unit, to Girl Scouts of Maine, to GSUSA. We want to minimize negative consequences around events. So could we just give you all of the rules and regulations in writing? Absolutely. And what do you know about people when they get a whole bunch of writing about rules and regulations? Yeah, a lot of people don't read that stuff. I do a lot of writing of that stuff, and I don't always read all of that stuff. So instead, we're trying to use the most time and space efficient means possible to provide collaborative, hands-on, participant-led learning to make sure that you all know what we know. And because if something happens when you haven't followed required procedures, you will be accepting personal liability. So we want to be here to protect you from that. Okay. Oh, it's going to click through again. That's so funny. I don't know why. It's something with my animations. So here's our agenda for today. And is it going to show? And our desired outcome for the next 65 minutes is that 65 minutes plus the Q&A. We will prepare Girl Scouts, girls and adults, to build committees and develop, deliver, and evaluate great Girl Scout events, because there's a lot of information. And even if you've done an event planning workshop before, remember you are a different person now than you were then, with more life experience and probably a new group of people to work with. So throughout this workshop, we're going to ask you to make notes. I'm going to ask you to make notes, and so will whoever's hosting the Q&A next week. And if you've printed out the guide already, the toolkit, go ahead and make notes in that. But if you haven't, at least have a notebook, have some paper that you can jot down notes. And again, you've got your questions that you want to make sure you write in the answers to. Because here's the thing. Goals and plans that are not written down are just wishes. And they may be awesome wishes, but they are just wishes. So prime that pen and let's go. Are you ready? Okay, we're going to start here with the basics. And the basics, our desired outcome is to identify foundations for every successful Girl Scout event planning process. Well, and the events themselves too. So, you know, we all live by the Girl Scout promise and law, and that's a foundation piece for every single Girl Scout member, right? Every girl, every adult, we live by the Girl Scout promise and law. What Girl Scout adults also live by, and now older girls who are involved in the planning process, is the Girl Scout leadership experience. This is, it's what we do, and it's what we've done for 107 plus years. But we want to, when we're planning events especially, we want to come back to this and check in with ourselves to make sure we're doing these things, because it starts with our mission. We build girls who lead with courage, confidence, and character and make the world a better place. And they're able to do that because of the strong sense of self, the positive values, the challenge seeking, the desire for challenge seeking, the healthy relationships, and the positive community problem solving outcomes that they build through girl-led, learn by doing cooperative learning activities that help them to discover, connect, and take action. I just realized I didn't click for the arrows to come through. There you go. This is what we do. These are our processes. These are the keys to leadership. And so as we're working on programming for our Girl Scouts, we want to have this as a filter that we're looking at. Don't you love these 5 short-term outcomes? I know as an adult, these are things that I continue to work on. My strong sense of self is pretty good, and my positive values are pretty good. But sometimes challenge seeking is hard, and so really wanting to seek challenges is something that I continue to work on. Ensuring healthy relationships, reaching out to people, and being understanding, using my emotional IQ, my EQ, is so important and something that I constantly work on. And being interested in getting involved in positive community problem solving, now more than ever before, it's something that I work on for myself and that I hope all of our girls are learning is a thing that they can do, because we're here to make the world a better place, right? So just like Simon says, we always want to start with why, right? Why are you having your event? More specifically than to build girls of courage, confidence, and character, on your notes, write down at least one reason your committee is planning this event and why you are helping. And let's take a minute for you to do that. Generally, events are great opportunities for girls and adults to experience the big sisterhood of Girl Scouts and to meet those exotic girls from other troops. You know how, isn't it awesome when you're a kid, the kids who go to the other elementary school, they're strange and interesting and maybe even weird, but it's exotic because it's different. They're so different. As an adult, we can look at that and go, they're just kids. They're kids just like the kids at this school. But as a kid, they're exotic. And so these big sisterhood opportunities are such an opportunity for girls to get to know some of those other exotic girls, and for them to be exotic to those others, and to learn about building that kind of a bridge to reaching out and expanding their community. So that's all. Events are the strongest memories for a lot of girls as they grow up, which is something that we know because GSUSA has done a bunch of surveys of people who've been Girl Scouts in their lifetime, and the things that they seem to call up most easily are events that they went to. So that's fine, and it's fine that that's the why of why we're doing an event, you know, for that big sisterhood thing, but it's probably not your only why, is it? What are some other whys? I mean, sometimes the first level of why isn't the whole why, like because it's a tradition is a nice why. But why is it a tradition? Or why is it a tradition worth our continuing? Or because Elaine said we have to have 3 events. Well, that's a great goal, but why would Elaine say that? So looking past the first why to see if there's more. Do you see what I mean? Like, it might be to help troops with a travel progression. Remember, travel progression actually starts anytime a troop leaves its meeting place, like with a local field trip, which might include the service unit cookie rally or an outdoor skills day at a local park or something. Or it might include a younger girl sleepover at the town hall. So your why might include helping troops out with some of their progression steps. Write down why else you're having the event. Do you have another level of why? Okay, so based on those whys, who is this event for? Write that down too. And who else? Who's going to make this event happen? Jot down the names of the people you know who plan to help. Maybe they've already joined your committee, or maybe they haven't officially joined the committee, but they are excited about this event and they've told you they want to participate in it. Who else? Who else should be part of that? And why those people? What did they bring to the committee and the event? And this is important. We want to remember that what some people might bring is being new, learning so they can carry on the experience or opportunity for or it might be an opportunity for the experienced ones to learn how to be coaches and mentors. There are lots of different reasons. Be sure to write down some of those whys. Why is it important for them to be part of the committee? And with that in mind, who else do you need to recruit to your committee? Are there some people who will only help at the event itself? And then if so, will you consider them part of your committee or presenters or not? And does it matter to you? Does it matter to anybody on your committee? And why or why not? That's an important conversation to have with your committee, just to make sure everybody knows, because no answer is a bad answer. But if some people think one way and some people think another way, and then a third person thinks a completely different way, then there can be that weird building of frustration and resentment because you all think you're looking at it the right way. We're going to talk about elephants in a little bit. Anyway, after we've thought about the who, when we've identified who the event is for and who's making it happen, we want to look at the what, when, and how. But these three are really the easy part because they're the fun part. They're like if you're having a dinner party. This is the meal, right? This is well, you know, my mouth wants to say the meat and potatoes. I'm vegetarian. I don't know why I go straight to meat and potatoes. But this is the meal, the tasty part. And those of you who've planned stuff in the past, how have you come up with the what, when, and how? What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? And how are we going to do it? Maybe you've already started thinking of some ideas. We have an abundance of resources. One of my favorite phrases is that we suffer from abundance. You know, there is no shortage in places we can get ideas because we've got the badge books and traditions, journeys, pop culture, season of the year, region of the state or the country or the world, the girls' ages, and other things. And you know, when I talk about badge books and journeys, I'm also talking about the volunteer toolkit because that's where so many of our resources are based, especially a lot of the new badge work and a lot of the new journeys. That's where you're going to find it. So with all of these resources, how do you decide what you're going to do? I follow Seth Godin a lot, and one of his things is you want to identify the dots and then connect them, but you've got to be careful not to have too many dots. Did you do those dot-to-dot puzzles when you were a little kid? And the ones that had just a few dots where you could almost see what the picture looked like without them, they were done in a reasonable amount of time. And then when you got good at them, there'd be the others with the little bitty dots and the little bitty numbers, and there'd be all sorts of numbers. And it would take you some time to make sure you were connecting them correctly, and you had to make sure you could really see what the numbers were, because sometimes the font would be funky. You know, it would be all fuzzy. And you want to make sure that you don't have too many dots for the amount of time you're allotting. Because if you're doing a 2-hour event and you've got, I don't know, 10 things to do, 10 things might be a lot for 2 hours. Or maybe not. Maybe you're able to see how to connect those dots. How are you going to decide? You're going to start with the why. So you got to go back to that why and think about, why are we doing the event? Who is it for? And who is making it happen? How are we as a committee? And then let those factors help you whittle down the what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it, to make sure that it's a successful event. Not too simple, but not too complex. Doable and right, both for our participants and for our committee. So you probably are coming into this with some thoughts already about what you want to do at the event, or what your committee has already talked about doing at the event, and your committee might be your troop. A lot of troops do events to earn money. And so if that's the case, go ahead and write down right now some of those things that you know you want to do. And like if you see doing them in a certain order, or you have a certain way of how you're going to do it. And if you think that's going to take a long time, pause the video, because you can come back. Then we live in magical times. It's just awesome. Okay. All right, so we have talked about the basics, and now we're going to talk about building your committee, because you never want to doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has, and that's what your committee is. We want to, in this section, determine who we need on the committee for a successful event, what roles we need to have covered, and how we're going to work together. Because, you know, you might be able to do this by yourself. You are awesome. I mean, really, you are awesome. I'm not making fun at all. I know if you are at a point in your life where you are listening to this video and you've signed up for this webinar, you are thinking about planning an event, and that alone makes you awesome. And maybe because you've done it before or because you can see it in your head, you can picture the whole event all by yourself and it's your vision and so you think, I could just do this. And, maybe you could. I know a lot of people who absolutely, I know that they could do it all by themselves, but why don't we want you to plan this event all by yourself right now? Why would we care if you plan the event with a committee or by yourself? Let's talk about that. I'm hoping that as you've been thinking about it or talking about it with whoever you're sitting with, that you have included things like, well, it's more fun to do things with other people. I definitely, and maybe that's not a fun thing for you, but I hope that you think it is. Because I enjoy doing it, and since I enjoy it, it's like when I'm cold, I want you to put on a sweater. It's a mom thing. But I also hope that you recognize it's an opportunity for you to share the things that you already know and discovered, to share that with other people, and also a time for you to learn and discover new things from others. So it's a real opportunity. Sometimes we're really good at giving information, and sometimes we're really good at gathering information, and sometimes we have an opportunity to do both. And that's what an event committee definitely is, because information comes in all shapes and sizes and from all different directions. And so there's a lot of opportunity there. I also, as a volunteer, I got to participate on committees for the same event year upon year. And I loved seeing how my role and my perspective on the event evolved as I had more experience with it. And so there's an opportunity for some natural, and sometimes you have to be intentional about it, evolution in your own becoming. So, the first year you're a newbie, you're in discovery mode, everything's kind of new. Maybe you haven't been to an event before, a Girl Scout event before. You've been to events before, but maybe you haven't been to a Girl Scout event before, or you haven't been to one in Maine. And so you're exploring it, and then the next year you've been to it, and then you're coming at it with some fresh ideas, because okay, I saw that, I saw how other people sort of drove it, and I'd like to add some of my spice, some of my flavor to it, and can we try this little bit of evolution to it? And then the third year, oh yeah, I've got a real handle on this. I've seen how 2 of them have happened. What do you think, guys, if we try these other things? And then by the 4th year, it's, you know what? I have enjoyed working on this, but I really can see that next year I'm going to want to move to a different event. So how can I support this committee? I don't want to leave them in the lurch, because I'm carrying a lot of the institutional knowledge, right? So I want to support them, but I also want others to start building their chops on this, to start getting stronger on it. So taking a different role. And it's a great time for each of us to be self-aware and to do a little thinking about how do I see my role this year? And then sharing that with the other members of the committee. Don't keep it a secret, because then they won't understand why you're talking too much or you're not talking enough. They want to know what you intend to do. And just like you want to know what they intend to do, so that everybody knows what is reasonable to expect of everybody else. Now, something else that we have asked you to do on this committee is we ask that it be at least 5 people, but we're asking that at least 2 of those 5 people be girls. So registered Girl Scout girls under 18, so that we're getting that real girl-led experience. And different people interpret that different ways. What our intention is when we say we want 2 girls on the committee is that they will be, no kidding, full committee members. So they will have responsibility on the committee. They won't just be sitting there for the adults to talk about some things and then turn to the girls and say, what do you think, girls? Do you like that? And the girls go, oh, yeah. No. They're fully participating just like the grown-ups. And that's one of the reasons why we ask for at least 2 members to be girls. Because sometimes when it's just one, she'll hang back. Or if she doesn't know a lot of the adults in the room, she might feel intimidated or uncomfortable speaking aloud in front of them, or not sure, is that lady's face saying that she doesn't like me, or whatever. So if there are 2, they can kind of bolster each other. Even if they didn't know each other before, they kind of bolster each other with sharing their ideas. And certainly you can have more than just the 2 girls. You want to think about how your committee is built. If it's a troop that's doing a money-earning event, or an event intended to earn money, then that troop obviously is going to be mostly girls with just 2 or 3 adults probably. And that can be a lot, but where you've worked as a troop together for such a long time, you have a rhythm on how you work together and bring the girls' ideas in. If you are looking at a committee and it looks like it's going to be over half girls, but all of the adults don't know all of the girls, please make sure you take a lot of time first to think about the upfront contract and the agreements, which we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes, that you make with this group, and take time to build team, to do the icebreaker so everybody gets to know each other, to do some team building, to break up friendships, not break up friendships, but, to ask girls while they're at the meeting not to sit by their best friend, or if there are girls from multiple troops, to sit by a girl from another troop, or to sit between some grown-ups, really to mix the group up physically so that it becomes a cohesive group rather than a this troop, and this troop, and a couple extra adults experience, because we want the committee to have a cohesion to it. What are our 3 processes? Right. Girl-led, learn by doing, cooperative learning. Girl-led, learn by doing, cooperative learning. And I want to take that girl-led and expand it to participant-led, because when we're talking about a committee for an event, all of the members of the committee are not children, not girls. A lot of them are adults. And we want every participant, every member of the committee to feel like she or he has had an active opportunity within the committee, because it's good for all of us, right? Those we aim them especially at girls, but it's really for all of us. It facilitates rich learning and participation for all of us in what we do. And Girl Scout event planning is all about those 3 processes. We all like the things we're part of creating, the changes that we're part of ourselves, the changes that we participate in. It's participant-led. So, if you were to think about how do you learn best? Do you learn best by reading, or by doing, or hearing, or some combination of the 3? Of course, the combination of the 3, right? And isn't that what being on a committee is? You're getting to listen to people, you're getting to talk to people, you're getting to read a lot of stuff, and then you get to do a lot. And so you get to learn and grow and develop some skills and hone some things, and it's a rocking experience. So remember that life is not a solo act. It's a huge collaboration, and we all need to assemble around us people who care about us and support our goals. And what better time than at a Girl Scout event? So let's get together. And I love that they're dancing. I don't know if you have ever watched the original Parent Trap, Disney's The Parent Trap with Haley Mills, but we want to get together, for cooperation, collaboration, the buddy system, sisters, progression, event planning. Girl Scouts, it's all about working together. So some things to think about when you're forming your committee. State the why. Make sure that everybody on the committee understands the purpose of it, who the committee is accountable to. If it's your troop and your troop is putting on a troop event to earn money, then it's accountable to itself. But if your committee is putting it on for the service unit, then you are accountable to your service team. Make sure that you know, or if you're putting on an event for GSME statewide, then you're accountable to GSME. Make sure you know your point person at whatever place that is, like in your service team. Is it your SUM? Is it your program coordinator? Is it your treasurer? Whoever. Find out. If it's GSME, which staff member is it? Give your committee a name and say it out loud. And, it's one of those things. I picture, having a mascot cheerleader kind of person who's like, yeah, we're the Julia Gordon-Low Pretty Pet Parade Committee, or, whatever the event is. Whatever the event name is, tie the committee name into it, and then we want the people who are on that committee to be happy about that and to be proud of it and to, to have some, feel a sense of connection when they associate with that name. Decide how people are going to join your committee and publish it. Again, if it's your troop, then it's your troop, and so there's that. But if you're doing a service unit-wide event, and you want people from other troops to be part of your committee, think about how you're going to get those people to join. Making an announcement at a leaders meeting is a great start. It cannot be the only way you ask for members to join your committee, because it's like the family circus, when mom says, "Who made this big mess?" And all the kids are like, "Nobody, nobody." And you see the little outline of a creature called Nobody running away. That's how people become. Instead, we have to be more specific and more present. So make an announcement at the leaders meeting for sure. Put it on your Facebook group for sure. And go to people. If it's an event that's specifically aimed at juniors, go to your junior leaders and say, "Hey, what are some things that you'd like to see at this?" But then maybe go to the older girl troop leaders and say, "Would you be willing to be on this committee to help us plan for the junior troops, since your girls have been juniors in the past?" Because you don't want to necessarily tap all the junior leaders, and then they wouldn't be able to do stuff with their girls, right? But going and specifically asking people one-on-one, eyeball to eyeball, "Hey, I saw you do X, Y, and Z at the Outdoor Skills Day last spring, and it was so great. I think you'd be wonderful at leading our parade for the Julia Gordon Low Pretty Pet Parade that we are having to celebrate Founders Day. Would you join our committee to be part of that?" You're complimenting the person, you're recognizing something that she did in the past as a positive thing, and you're inviting her to recreate that idea or to use that same skill set in this new thing going forward. How is she going to say no to you? I mean, she still might. But if you don't ask, it's as good as if she said no before, right? Because if you don't ask, the answer is no. But if you ask, the answer might be no, but it might also be yes. So ask. Name the person or people who are responsible for leading the meetings. If you have a committee chair and she's going to be the person responsible for leading the meetings, awesome. Make sure everybody knows and knows how to contact her. If you're going to rotate who's leading the meetings, cool. Just make sure everybody knows how to identify the person who's leading the next meeting so they know who to contact if they're not going to be able to make it or if they have questions. And establish the timeline and clear agendas for the meeting. For the committee. And that we've kind of taken care of for you with that committee checklist that I'd mentioned before and that we're going to look at more closely. So, yay. When committees don't work well, these are some things that you want to be aware of ahead of time. So if a committee lacks purpose plan or a long-term agenda, it often goes badly. Because people don't know why they're there. Why am I here? I don't know. If people are assuming it's going to be just like it was last time. Oh, we did this event 3 years ago and it was great. And we've got the same committee together and we're going to do it again. Well, 3 years ago was in the past. You are totally new people now. And you're coming with different life experience. You're coming with different life circumstances. So it's not going to be just like it was before. And you don't want to assume that it is. You want to make sure that you do take care of those foundations of discovering expectations and goals, setting agreements based on those, of doing some icebreakers again. Because even if you're with each other all the time, you can never get to know somebody too well. You find out more about them. And do some team building exercises because this is a new team, even if it's the same group of people. If you have an inability to focus or communicate as a group, or if some of the individuals do, it can be very detrimental to your committee. So really take the time to help the whole group focus in on a couple of goals, one goal at a time, one outcome at a time, and to communicate, to talk openly about things, respectfully and openly. In fact, I just posted a thing about people like us do things like this, and something that people like us do, that Girl Scouts like us do, is we communicate clearly, we give praise in public, but we give critical feedback in private. So never on a Facebook group, never in front of a committee. If there's something that you need to talk to somebody about because you're feeling frustrated, if you can do it in private first, that's going to help, because it'll prevent some of the embarrassment that comes with getting critical feedback. Because when somebody gives you critical feedback, it's like, what? Ouch. Okay, it might not be wrong, but I have to process it. And it might be embarrassing. So we want to really respect that person, and we want to create a place where they're going to be able to take that feedback and do something with it, because it was scary for you to give the feedback probably. And you don't want to be scared and then just blah all over them and make it a negative experience. The whole point of giving it is to make a positive change. So praise in public, critical feedback in private. Another thing that interferes with committee success is if one or more members is poorly involved, or if people don't understand the level of involvement of that member or those members. And so this will come up a little bit in the agreements. And then the fifth thing that's notorious for wrecking committees is when there's a failure to appreciate the resources you have on your committee or to share the ball. Nobody likes a ball hog, no matter how many goals she scores. People want to participate. They've shown up to the committee because they want to help. And if one or two people don't let the other members help, they're going to get angry. They're not going to want to be there, and they're not going to want to support the event. So let's don't do that, okay? So we can get away from those things by creating an upfront contract, or, as I like to call them, agreements. Because it's group generated and it's agreed to, and it deals with the purpose of the committee, what the members' goals and expectations are, what GSME's goals and expectations are, and which you're getting from this, the time that's going to be involved in it, and the desired outcome of the event. So you want to take time as a group to generate the agreements. And sometimes people will show up with ground rules. I don't know, I think I'm of an era that was, fight the man, don't give me rules. But every group I've ever been part of, we've had agreements that sounded at least as strict as any rules that were ever imposed on any group I was in before that. But if you do show up with ground rules, because there are some agreements that everybody always puts, always ask the group to add to that. Are there other things we should add to this list to agree to? Other things we should add to this contract to agree to? And then, before you go, ask, are there any points here that somebody cannot hold up, that somebody's not going to be able to agree to? Because what happens if you can't hold up your end of the contract? Right? If you go back to the number 4 on the slide before, if somebody agrees that I'm going to come to every single meeting and I'm going to actively participate and I will show up prepared and, whatever, and then she only shows up to half the meetings and she's never prepared and she's 5 minutes late every single time, that's going to cause some resentment in your committee. So we don't want that. But what if she's showing up 5 minutes late every other meeting because those are the days when she is taking her 2 children to her ex-husband because he has custody for those weekends, and they meet right at the same time as the meeting, and so she either shows up 5 minutes later or she doesn't show up. Well, if that's something that she can tell you up front when you were first agreeing to the agreements, then everybody can go, oh yeah, this is the week when Denise is going to be late, and that's okay. But if you don't know, or if she hasn't had a chance to check with the group to make sure that it's cool, then resentments will build up. So make sure that everybody has a chance to say, yes, I can agree to every one of these. Are there any of these that I can't agree to? No, I can agree to all of them. Or, you know what, I can agree to all except for, I know that this thing is going to happen. Is that going to be okay? And that gives the committee the opportunity to say, oh yeah, now that since we know ahead of time, sure, it's okay. Or, wow, no, that one thing is a big deal, so no, it's not going to be okay. And maybe there's another committee that you can be part of. And thanks for stepping up, but yeah, it's not going to work for this one. But it gives everybody the chance to know right up front what expectations are reasonable and what expectations are not, and who's going to be able to hold them up. So do this at the beginning. But dude, it takes so much longer, doesn't it? Right? It takes so much longer. It totally does. And what are some of the things that happen in that additional time? You know, in that time that's taking longer. With some thought and planning, what could happen in that additional time includes building a strong team with diverse skills and connections, building rapport among the team members that will continue well beyond this event, developing buy-in among a much broader audience, because it's not just building buy-in among the members of this committee, but it's building buy-in among the people that those people know. So each of those members represents a troop and troops' families, and all of those people are going to feel more positive about the event because they know this member of the committee who's feeling really good about working on this committee. You know, if she goes to her troop meeting and she's like, oh my gosh, those committee meetings are just painful, then they're going to have a negative feeling about the event. But if she goes and she's like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is going to be such an exciting event. We are having such a great time planning it and getting great ideas. You're definitely going to want to go. Then they're going to be like, oh, I totally want to go, because she has just told us that it's going to be super exciting, even if she doesn't share what the exciting stuff is. So developing that buy-in among the broader audience, because you're taking time to build a rich experience for your committee members, is paying off like crazy. Sharing the time and responsibilities to make it happen also pays off like crazy. We all hear many hands make light work, and that is definitely true when it comes to events, especially when you take the time to build the proficiency among the committee members. And you are expanding future opportunities for individuals and the larger group, because people who are on this committee who understand how to build a committee and how to plan an event, not only can they come back to this committee for a future year, but they might think of another event that would be awesome and different that the service unit's never seen, and they'll know how to build a committee to develop that event. So what a bunch of opportunities. Think about, what would those things mean to your team or to your troop or to your service unit or to GSME in general? They're all good things, right? So why are we here? For the quick fix or the long term? Go slow to go fast. For the long term, let's do this. Okay, so we've gotten the basics. We've talked about building your committee. Let's start actually planning. And I love this picture because look at all the hands that are going to make light work of this. And it doesn't look like it's going to be light work because of all that stuff on the table, but that is communication. They've gotten all of their stuff on the table. Everybody can see what each of them is focused on, thinking about, worried about, and they're able to talk about it and figure out who's going to be best to help share each of the different loads. So our desired outcome for this section is to begin plotting out what will make this event awesome. What would life be like if we all experienced the world the same way? Like in this picture, each of these 6 children can't see with his eyes. Think about how each one would describe the elephant that he's touching. You know, you've got the one down here who would think, oh, you mean an elephant is like a hose? Or another one who would say, oh no, an elephant is like a pillar. Another one who'd say, oh no, an elephant's like a big flap or tarp. And another, an elephant is like a wall. It's huge and big. Or it's like a pipe. Or this guy might be, it's like a rope, and it's kind of wet and stinky. Would any one of them alone be able to describe the elephant if he just stayed right where he is? No, of course not. But what happens if he gets up and he feels the different parts? Like he goes over to this guy and he says, ooh, so my part felt like a rope, but your part does feel like a wall. And then they walk together and go, ooh, and this one does feel like a pillar. And this does feel like a pipe. They're able to feel the different parts based on description and understanding and walking around and checking out the different perspectives of the elephant. Well, that's kind of how a lot of things happen in life, right? We all come into our experiences with different life experiences, sometimes with a lot of overlap. You know, any of you who watched the Bradys after school as a kid, we've got some overlap. Or let's see, if you watched Liberty's Kids on PBS, or Between the Lions, or those, there's shared experience on some of those things, right? But then there's also some different experience. And so when we take the time to communicate and to talk about our individual experiences as well as our shared experiences, we're able to do a little bit of team building and to help build our communication process so we understand what each other expects and means when they're talking about things. So this event planning worksheet, which is in your toolkit, this is a tool that you can use to help you do exactly that. Because what we have found is that often people will come to their planning committees with lots of different ideas that they're super excited about for an event. And they're different things. Like some folks are super excited about the goals and outcomes. It's like, oh, it's going to be so cool because when the girls leave, they're going to do this and they're going to be able to do this and they're going to understand this. And that's great. But other people will be like, yeah, but the girls are going to get to do these really cool activities. And other people will say, yeah, but I really want the girls to make sure that they've done parts of this badge and this one journey activity. Yeah. Other people are worried about, we only have 4 people on our committee and we need more and we need a couple of them to be girls. So who's going to be ideal for this committee? And who do we need to ask? Well, somebody else will be like, how are we going to afford this thing? What kind of money do we have? Do we have money we can invest up front? And how much are we going to charge people? And other people are just going to be thinking, what if there's a hurricane? What if there's a tornado? What if there's a rainstorm? What are we going to do? What's our plan B going to be? So if you take these 2 pages, whether on 8.5 by 11, or you put these topics up on a piece of chart paper on the wall, or maybe you work in a classroom where there's some kind of board you can write on, and put the topics up and let everybody write down their things that they're preoccupied by. They should all everybody should start with the thing that they're most excited about, and then go to the next thing that they're excited about, and the next thing that they're excited about, until they're at a place where they're confident that it's written up so everybody can see it. Because sometimes when we come with things that we're so excited about, we can't hear what anybody else has to say because we're so worried that they won't hear us, that we don't listen to them. It's crazy, but it's true. And I did just hear a Mr. Rogers song right there. So get the things up where everybody can see it, because then after everybody's put their stuff up, all higgledy-piggledy, but in the right sections, then as a group, as a committee, you can go through and say, okay, so our general description is a Founders Day event, and our working title is the Juliet Gordon Low Pretty Pet Parade. Okay. And, what we've got, a couple of people put, these are our goals, And some folks put that they thought some key activities we'd want to include would be the parade and maybe a cakewalk, since it happens around Halloween and that's sort of a tradition, having a cakewalk. And somebody else has put that they would like us to do the Girl Scout Way badges, or at least a couple of activities from the Girl Scout Way badges, since that includes something about celebrating Juliet Gordon Low's birthday. And they'd also like us to do some of the outdoor skills patch program, since it's going to be outdoors. And we know of these 3 girls from the next town over who would like to be on the committee, so we can talk to them. But we were thinking we wanted to have another adult, so we had adults representing all 6 levels of Girl Scouts in our service unit. And whatever, and this is what our budget is from the service unit, since it's a service unit event, and we'll have to figure out, based on our budget, we'll have to figure out what we're going to charge people. So that's one. Let's put that in our other thoughts. What are we going to charge? And then our plan B, let's think about that too, because we want to make sure we've got a good option on plan B. And maybe somebody have it indoors at Beaver Park instead of outdoors at Beaver Park. Okay, so that's something that we can check on for sure. But by having it here and being able to go through it after everybody's just been able to toss their ideas up, being able to go through it methodically helps everybody relax a little bit into understanding this general agenda of what your committee needs to do, right? Because that's what it is. It's just, you've just created a general agenda, but you've done it based on the things that were preoccupying. And it also allows you to see where you have gaps, like, ooh, we didn't think about other human resources. Are there other people who we need to have involved who we haven't thought of already? Or where do we want to hold it? We've just assumed Beaver Park, but maybe we want to hold it at a more central location. Or what community connections do we need? We probably need the rec director, since he's now in charge of Beaver Park. Who else do we need? Do we want to ask the retired ranger to come back and do some of that work with us, especially if we're going to do the Outdoor Skills Day? And how are we going to publicize this? Because we're all excited about it, but if we don't get the word out to the other leaders, then we might not have any girls show up. So it gives you that chance to first follow your emotions and then become a little bit more methodical about it to make sure that you're covering all of your bases. It's also a chance to see if people are coming in with some conflicting ideas. So we had the one leader who wanted to do the Girl Scouts Way badge and some outdoor skills patch program, but then somebody else is like, we had an outdoor skills day last spring and we've already done level 1. In fact, most of our troops have already done level 1 of the outdoor skills patch program. So maybe I can come to your troop and help you do level 1 so you can catch up when we do level 2 this year. But if I would really like to see, in addition to the Girl Scouts Way badge, for us to do the safety pin for all of the different levels, whatever it is. But if you see, it gives people a chance to see if there are competing ideas that you can either combine, or we'll do one this year and one next year, or something like that. It can be a really great team building exercise for you to use this and to truly engage each other in conversation about it. Not just throw your ideas up there and then leave it like, okay, and now that's filled out, but to use it as a launch pad for a conversation, because you want to go slow to go fast. Okay, let's take a peek at the guide, the toolkit. Your toolkit looks like this, and like I said, it was attached to the email that I sent to you, and it includes tools that you must use and tools that you can use. And so I want to just click us through it so I can show you the required things, because there are, I think we only have 3 truly required documents in here, and then we have 3 documents that you would give to troop leaders because they're required for them occasionally, not always. And then we have a lot of tools that just help make your life a better place. So there's this event planning introduction. Not going to read it to you because it's something that you might give to people before they've gone to this training so that they become familiarized with the idea. This page is a tool just for you to use if you're the kind of person who likes to have your action steps all in one place. Because from the checklist will have them spread over a few pages, and that's important for your work on the committee, but sometimes as an individual it's nice to have them all in one place. So we made it a checklist with check boxes and a due date, and then my favorite part, these back burner items, because I don't know about you, but when I'm in the throes of planning something and I'm very excited about it and a little stressed about it, I get a million great ideas for other stuff. And so I can let those things completely distract me, or I can write them on my back burner items list, and I can trust that I'll come back to that and take care of them after this event's done. Gave you the reminder of the Girl Scout leadership experience, so you can flip to that, as well as this reminder that we are all superheroes and GIRLs in the process. Some definition on the ideas of service unit events and opportunities, a little bit of that, and then the event planning worksheet that we just looked at. I tossed in the 6 parts of a meeting template because sometimes it's hard to plan a meeting after you've already been planning meetings, or if you've never planned a meeting before. And so I used the basic 6 parts of a meeting setup, and what are we going to do? What are our desired outcomes? Why are we doing this thing? Who's going to be responsible for it? Who's going to take the lead on it? And what materials do we need for it? And again, this is a tool that you can use. You don't have to use. I find it very helpful, especially when I'm working with girls or people who haven't done a lot of meeting planning. It's a handy tool to give them. It's a framework or a lattice to give them to start working with the process. And then we tossed in a sample event schedule. So this is from some event that has rotations. Your event might follow a schedule that looks very much like this, or it might be different from it, but it's to give you something to push off of, right? Because if you haven't planned an event schedule before, it can be hard to just plan it from nothing. And so we stuck in a template that follows that, if that's a order that you want to work in. We also included this materials list with the materials listed, the ones that almost every event requires, but then spaces, because your event is going to be unique to your service unit and your experience, and so there will be other materials that you'll need. So please do add on the other materials, but these are some that you want to be sure you've included. And then this is the event committee checklist grid. So in an ideal world, every single member of your committee is going to have a copy of this whole toolkit. In a minimal world, at least have a couple copies of the whole toolkit, but every single member of the committee should have this event committee checklist grid, because these boxes across the top are going to have the names of each of your committee members in them. And then here are the things that people will sign up for, right? Well, what they sign up to do, and it's a little bit easier if we switch to the next page. When they sign up for something, in the box that is the intersection of their name and the item, the checklist item, you put the due date. So Delia here has signed up to develop the programming to include some GSLE and NPP, National Program Portfolio, which is the badges and journeys. And she's going to do that, and she's going to do that with Tegan. They're going to work together to develop the draft of the program for the event. And so since they're drafting the program, they're also going to start arranging for presenters and reaching out to people who could present for this programming. Meanwhile, Sarah and Tori are going to arrange for the event first aider. Each of them has to be with her own troop as the first aider, but they know of a couple of people who are also trained in first aid, who can be the designated first aider as per the safety activity checkpoints for the event. And they also, since Sarah is the service unit treasurer, they're also going to work on the event budget together and complete the event budget form. So with Delia and Tegan, they're going to work on this program, and they'll have it ready for our meeting at the 6-week mark. Which is May 31st. And so we put under Delia's name and Tegan's name, we'd put May 31st. And they're also going to arrange for and contact presenters by then. No, let's give them a couple weeks, because we want to talk about it as a committee, right? So they'll arrange for and contact presenters by June 15th. Then Sarah and Tori are going to reach out to their first aider friend by May 31st also, so 5/31, and they're going to develop that event budget even sooner. So by 5/15, they're going to have developed the event budget and complete the event budget form, because they want to be able to turn it in by May 31st. So they want to have it ready to review with the whole committee at that May 15th meeting. So we'll put May 15 here, and then they'll turn it in May 31st. May 31st they'd complete it and then submit it to the budget. Anyway, do you see what I mean, though? So each person under her name, the things that she's going to do, gets the due date on here. Then at the end of the meeting, because you had a meeting sometime in this 6 to 8 week time where everybody has said that they would do those things, at the end of the meeting you go around the group and say, okay, Delia, what are the things that you've signed up for, and when is their due date? And Delia says, okay, I see that I'm working with Tegan to develop the program, and we're going to have that ready by May 31st, and we're going to arrange for and contact presenters by June 15th. And then I'm also going to be helping Tori publicize the event for registration. And then Tegan says, okay, so I'm going to be working with Delia to develop the program to include GSLE and NPP, and we're doing that by the 31st. And then we're going to arrange for and contact presenters by June 15th. And I'm going to be part of writing up the Plan B with Sarah, so that we've got that in the bag. And then Sarah goes through and she identifies the things that she's working on with Tori and with Tegan. And Tori is able to go through and identify the things that she's working on with Sarah and with Delia. So it's redundant, because you've got the same people talking about being responsible for the same things together, but it's also for clarity, to make sure that everybody is hearing, okay, she signed up for this, it's due here, and that's what I have on my form. Because Delia is keeping track not only of what she signed up for, but under Tegan's name, she's got what Tegan signed up for, and under Sarah's name, she's got what Sarah signed up for, and under Tori, she's got what Tori signed up for, and under Dawn, she's got what I've signed up for. So we're all in this together, and each of us has a grid that by the end of the meeting is going to look just the same, with the names across and with the due dates that each of us has for the different items that we've signed up for. And that's awesome for accountability, because that means everything I've signed up for here, all of these people know that I've signed up for those things and when I should be done with them. And so, and just like I know when each of them has signed up for all of their things and when those are due. So if maybe I finish my things early and I see, you know, Tori signed up for a lot of things, why don't I give her a call and see if she needs a hand with anything? Or, you know, I know Tegan's in a testing period at school, and so maybe she didn't realize how much she was signing up for. Let me give her a call and see if she needs a hand with anything. I don't want to take away her power for any of them, but if I have free hands, you know, I'm happy to help them. Just like they would be happy to help me if the reverse were true. And so you go through the checklist as a committee and you do that for each of the things. And it's just this awesome tool that you can use all the way through. Great for accountability, great for everybody understanding what everybody else is doing, and to be able to see if somebody's taken on a lot of things, how you can help, how they can help. I want to point out this during the last 2 weeks prior to the event. I'm not reading through all of the things because you all can read, and so you'll be able to do that. But for 2 weeks prior, you want to look at anything that's not caught up and catch up everything that hasn't been. And if anything else has come up, that's part of the troubleshooting idea. You want to make sure you're having a final committee meeting in those last 2 weeks, where maybe you're even doing a walkthrough of the facility if you can, or you're at least mentally walking through and reviewing the schedule and doing any troubleshooting that needs to be done. And you're scheduling a wrap-up meeting. This is a follow-through thing. If you play any of those sports where you hit a ball with something, you understand the concept of follow through. If you kick, you understand the concept of follow through. If you leap, if you jump, you understand the concepts of follow through. Because if you don't follow through, then even though you made connection with the ball, if the bat stops here, the ball is also going to stop here. You have to hit, and the bat continues, and the ball will continue. If you're throwing a Frisbee, you can't see this, but I'm moving my arms all over the place. If you're throwing a Frisbee, you point where you want that Frisbee to go long after the Frisbee has left your hand. You know, it's follow through. Same is true when you're planning events. The same is true for lots of life events that we don't do follow through on, but I only have power on this event thing. Schedule a meeting to wrap up your event. Do not schedule it for the day of the event afterwards, because you're going to be tired. Schedule it for another time within 2 weeks, you know, like the one not more than 2 weeks after the event. So everything's fresh and you can remember. And then give yourself a good deep breath. On the day of the event, arrive early, meet with your committee to review responsibilities, do a pep talk, and set up. And it's going to be exciting. And then post those direction signs first, because people are going to arrive early, and when people can't find you, they think you don't want them. So make sure you've given people good directions, and you put direction signs out to say, we are here, so that folks can find you, including a sign on the door that you want them to come in, so that they're sure to come in the right door and not surprise you by coming in the door behind you. And set up your check-in station, your first aid station next. I always put my first aid stations with my check-in stations, because then everybody sees it and they know right where it is for the rest of the event, right? But the reason that you set up the check-in station so early is because no matter what time you told people to arrive, you will have people who arrive an hour early. And it's because they're so excited to come to your event. They're just like, oh, we didn't want to be late. And so they're there super early. So if you've got the direction signs up so they can find you, and you've got the check-in site ready so you can check them in, you can also make cards with jobs of things that need to be done the day of the event. So maybe one of the cards is greet a presenter, and you have greet them at the front door, have their bag, take them to the room where they're going to be presenting, help them set up, ask if they need anything. And so as people arrive early and they say, hey, can we help you? Sure, take this card. Maybe another job is to make sure there are wastebaskets in all the rooms. Or another job is to make sure that all of the presenters have water bottles. Or another job is to sing camp songs until we're ready to get started as people meet in the auditorium. Lead some camp songs, and here's a list of ideas. So that if people offer to help, instead of stressing you out, they're able to do the things that you've already put on a card and said, here's a great job. What happens if nobody offers to help? Well, then you've got the jobs that need to be done listed on cards, and so you can give it to other committee members, and either for them to do or for them to go recruit members of the crowd to say, hey, would you guys like to lead our flag ceremony? Hey, would you guys like to lead a couple of camp songs? So that it's easy. Because the day of the event, no matter how many times you've done it, no matter how confident you are in the world, it's still a little stressy on the day of the event, especially in the morning as you're getting everybody into place and all the pieces are coming together mostly, except for that one person who got sick at the last minute, or that one person who got a flat tire on the way in, or whatever. Something always goes not quite the way you plan. Maybe the microphone system doesn't work right or whatever. But if you can take a little bit of the load off by having some of those jobs on cards that you can give to people so you don't have to think of them on the spot, then it's going to make your life a lot easier. And then put on a great event. Ooh, I actually just saw a thing today. Elizabeth, who does some of our big programs, for our Green Me Up event, she created an information table guide. So the people who are at the information table have a guidebook of all of the things about the event. I love that, because even if your event is only a couple of hours long, if it has 4 rotations, it's nice for somebody who's at the check-in table to know what those 4 rotations are, which rooms they're in, who the leader of it is, and if people signed up for things ahead of time, what they signed up for. So creating a little guidebook for the person who is staffing that registration table is really loving. It's very kind to do for those people. And it's going to be super efficient for you to make sure that things go the way that you hope that they go. And then we've also included here this essentially an agenda for your after meeting, your wrap-up meeting, because that's where you're going to do your own committee evaluation, your plus delta, your what went well, what we want to do differently next time. And then after you've made that one for your committee, where your committee has sat together and they've said, oh, we did this, 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 and this. These were great. Everybody loved that. And then, oh, next time I'd rather do this, and I think we should do it this way, and I think we should do it here instead, and whatever. And then take the participant evaluations that you had them do, because right over here, participant and presenters evaluations, take those evaluations after your committee has done yours and add their pluses to your plus side and their things that could be better to your delta side. And suddenly you have this great list of things that are going to help the next event plan better, right? As a committee, complete the event final report form and turn it into your program coordinator, your service team's program coordinator, and also send a copy of it to Kirsten Powell-Williams at kpowell@gsmaine.org. She uses those to help give people ideas for upcoming events. Like if somebody says they're doing an event just like yours, she can say, hey, this service unit did that, and here were some of the ideas that they had. Here were the badges that they did. Here were things that they found didn't work the way they thought they would. Complete and turn in your event budget worksheet, which means you have to have paid outstanding bills. Here's my rule. If somebody spends money for an event, I always tell them, I need your receipt not later than the day of the event. Not later than the day of the event. Because if they give it to me a month later, 2 months later, I'm sorry, I have closed the books on that event. Thank you for your donation. They need to give the receipts to the person who's paying the bills before or by the day of the event. And if they know, I'm not going to have that receipt until the next week, then they should talk to the treasurer or the troop treasurer to say, I'm going to have a receipt for this. Here's how much it is, but I'm not going to have the written receipt for you until next week. Is that going to be okay? And if they can come to an agreement on a day when they're going to meet and that receipt's going to change hands, awesome. But To hold outstanding bills longer is to hold that checkbook hostage, and it's not fair to the person who's paying the bills, and it's not fair to the beneficiaries of that money, whether it's the service unit or the troop. So receipts need to be turned in. Make that an agreement up front. Receipts need to be turned in not later than the day of the event. And then the second part of that is, if somebody at the beginning says, hey, I'm going to do this and I've got all sorts of materials at home I can build it out of, don't worry about it, it's not going to cost us a penny, and then says, oh, you know, my stuff's kind of junk, I'm going to go out and buy the supplies, and goes out and spends a bunch of money on the supplies, unless he or she has talked to the committee about that change in plans, it's not okay to expect to get reimbursed for that. We have a case that I recall where somebody was going to build stuff with lumber that he had, and instead he decided his stuff wasn't good, so he went out and he bought $250 worth of supplies and then billed the service unit for that without talking to anybody about it until he handed them the receipt. And as a committee, they may have said, oh, sure, yeah, no, that's great, go ahead, we trust you, and $250 is going to fit in our budget, that's fine. Or they might have said, you know what, let's do something different instead of that activity because we can't afford the $250. It was not fair for him to make the decision on his own. So make sure that those are very clear agreements that everybody understands up front. Be sure to send thank you notes. And even if you did the thing with thank you notes for your presenters on the day of, send a follow-up thank you emails noting something specific to that day. You know, I really appreciated that you showed up a little bit early and that you were so kind to the girls who showed you to your room. I heard only great things about your workshop, you know, whatever. But it's nice to get that follow-up connection. And then be sure to report out to your whole service unit at the next leaders meeting. Do a little slideshow. Make sure they know if they were there that it was awesome and help them remember how awesome it was. And if they missed it, make sure they know what an awesome event they missed so that none of them can wait until next year when it's time to go. I stuck this intent to hold an event or opportunity in because this is one of the 3 required documents. You need to submit this 9 weeks, at least 2 months prior to your event. Please submit this at least 2 months prior to your event. And this event and program budget worksheet, this should be submitted at least 6 weeks prior to the event. If it's a service unit event, then submit it to your service team treasurer. If it is a troop event, then you're going to handle it within your troop. But it's not a bad idea to go to that service team treasurer and ask her or him to sit with you, committee members, to plan out the budget, because there's a little bit of math involved in it. It's not hard math, but it is, you know, the first time you do it, it can be a little confusing. So, you know, get an expert. Have an expert help you. That is a required document. This agreement for renting or borrowing a non-council inside is not required to GSME, but it is recommended if you're working with a non-GSME facility and they don't have their own contract. And this is just an upfront contract with another organization about these are the facility things that we need that you're providing. And I would even cross out the ones that you're not using. Like if you're not using trash pickup, make sure that they know. If you're not using wood for campfires, make sure that they know. But you want to be sure that they do know what you think you're using and get clarity on what's okay with them that you're using. The next 2 pages, this is a checklist to help you make sure that the facility you're looking at has the things that you are looking for. If you're not sleeping, then you don't care about sleeping facilities. You can cross those out. If you're not cooking, you don't care about outdoor cooking areas, so you can cross that out. You are working with humans, so you probably care about toilets, so that's important to know. But if you're not going swimming or boating, then you don't care about aquatic sites, so you can cross that out. If you're doing indoor cooking, there might be things that you want to add to this because, strangely, that's not on here. I don't know why. But this is to help you do an assessment of a facility to make sure it's going to meet the needs of your event. I included the troop activity form and the parent permission form in here and the photo release form in here in case you need that from your troops. If your event is going to be overnight, out of state, or include any high-risk activities, troop leaders need to submit a troop activity form for their troops to participate in it. And they can submit this to their volunteer support specialist, or they can go online to the JOT form, you know, at our Girl Scouts of Maine website and volunteer forms and enter troop activity form, and it pops up with the automatic form they can fill in, and that's fine too. So you, as a committee, somebody on your committee is going to want to check with your volunteer support specialist to make sure that all of the people who are registered for your event have also submitted troop activity forms if you have high risk, overnight, or out-of-state activities. And then this is just to help them remember they should be submitting permission forms, having parents complete a permission form since they have done the activity form. If you don't have high-risk stuff, if you're not out-of-state or overnight, then say you're doing a cookie rally that does not include swimming or roller skating or zip lining or any of that, then troops don't need to do those things. That's perfectly fine. But if you're going to have swimming, or if you're going to go roller skating, or if it's overnight, or if it's out-of-state, they need those. You probably do want to do the photo release forms because you're going to want to take pictures of this thing. This event is going to be awesome. So have people complete these forms. And that's because you don't want to put anybody at risk or make anybody feel uncomfortable by taking pictures of them when they don't want to have their picture taken, or they should not or cannot have their picture taken. So you want to make sure that you cover yourself with this. This gives you some ideas if you're working with presenters who might be coming to your event. And the Family Star program also gives you some ideas on how you might recruit some parents or extended family members to be presenters or support people on your event. Remember that with this, you can add some jobs to these things based on how important you as a committee think that they are. So is it something that you need so desperately that you think it's worth the whole patch, like a lifeguard for your camporee? Or is it something that's really helpful, like a room monitor, but it's not worth the whole thing, it's just a room monitor per session? I don't know, whatever. Think about how important it is, how desperately you need it, and so how valuable it is for that adult to be helping with your event. Then this is another one of the required forms, the event and opportunity final report form. Please fill this in at that follow-through, that wrap-up meeting, because that helps us know what's going on at the events, what's working well, what's not working well, what resources you used, how you advertised it, how you got girls involved in it, what the girls did with those things, recommendations that you would make, so from your Delta list, what things you would do differently if you're going to do it the same or a similar event another time, and if you got support from anybody, etc. Then just for tools, I stuck in an event evaluation example. You could use this event evaluation or build one that you like that does similar things, because you want to find out what people liked about the event. You want to find out what they think would make it better. I never ask people what they didn't like, because that's not going to help me. I want to know, okay, what did you like? And then what do you think would make it better still? And if they didn't like the food, they don't have to tell me, well, I didn't like the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I think it would be better. Instead, they can say, I would like tacos. Because if they just tell me I didn't like the peanut butter and jelly, well, maybe next year I do bologna. And then they don't like bologna. And then the next year I do salami. Well, the reality is they don't like sandwiches. They want tacos. Okay, awesome. If they just tell me, I think it'd be better if we had tacos, great, let's have tacos. So I'm looking for a solution. I'm not looking for a complaint. And then finally, I also stuck in the service unit event survey, because sometimes it feels like at the service unit level, it feels like your committees are working together to plan these events, and then people don't come to them. And so I always like to do a survey of a population to say, okay, what do you want? What kinds of events are your girls interested in participating in? What time of year works well for your troop? And is there an event that you or your troop would be especially interested in helping with? Because, if I don't ask, then I'm making up stories in my head. But if I ask, then I at least get the story that they're telling themselves. So that's the story that's going to be more helpful for me. So that is the toolkit that you have in attached to your email. Hopefully you've had a chance to print it out, at least one copy. And again, in an ideal world, every member will have a copy of it, but for sure, every member will have a copy of that checklist grid, please. And know that if your committee has more than 5 people, I also have the checklist grid in an Excel and Google spreadsheet format so that you can keep track of more people. So I hope that will be helpful. Okay, great. So we've kind of started planning. Let's deliver an awesome event. Look at these events. I can tell this is a cookie rally. You know this too, because, well, they're wearing their uniforms, so we know it is a Girl Scout event. They're wearing snow boots and a bunch of coats are on the side, and there are hats in the room. It's cold, which means it's early January, right? And then these girls are at a tea party, and I want to say this was in the springtime. It might have been associated with Mother's Day. And then these guys were camping just as a troop, but I just love that picture so much. This one up on the sideways, and oh, I love that picture. Anyway, so if we're going to deliver an awesome event, the desired outcome of this section is to, wait for it, deliver an awesome event. There's such great experiences for girls and Girl Scouts and for troops, and you want to be worthy of those girls. You want your event to be worthy of those girls, and you want your event to be worthy of you and your committee and the hard work that you've done. So let's look at that. What are you going to do? I've been blathering on for quite a while. I'm going to be quiet for about 60 seconds while you take some time to write down some more notes. Have I answered any of the questions that you started with? Are there still outstanding questions? Are there still questions you're not sure about that you want to circle or highlight for the Q&A when you go to the webinar? This is my being quiet. Okay, phew, we're done, right? I love that. There was no buzzer sound for me to go, eh. So instead, we got a little explosion. Whoops. We are not done. Well, and we just talked about it a little bit, but, you know, it's always so great when you're at the end of a great event and people are happy and your good work is paid off and people had fun and they learned something or they celebrated something or all of the above. Woohoo! Now, what you deserve, besides a good rest, is reflection. So at the end of the event, you have participants and presenters complete an evaluation. And then you need your committee to do an evaluation too, because you deserve to take time to reflect on your work and to look to the future. So this is just a variation on that last page that we looked at. Give yourself time to use this as an agenda and to go through these steps and do it 1 to 2 weeks after the event while it's still fresh in your mind, but not so fresh that it happened that day because you're just too tired the day that it happened. Give yourselves a couple of days, a couple of nights sleep to let everything kind of process and coagulate in your brain, and then take that time at that meeting date that you scheduled 2 weeks before the event to talk about what went well, what was great about our event, what was great about our planning process, and next time, what would we do differently? What would we change? Then, again, after you as a committee have put your ideas up, then look at the participant and the presenter evaluations and add their things that they liked and their things that they wish had gone differently. So next steps for you. You are just about ready to participate in the Q&A coming up on GoToWebinar, if you have done some of these things. So first, are you signed up for the Q&A Let's Plan Events webinar in GoToWebinar? Hopefully you have signed up in eBiz and you used the link that you got from eBiz to sign up in GoToWebinar. If you have not done both of those things, please do both of those things so that you're on the roster and you're able to log in. That when you go to GoToWebinar, it'll give you the login information for the actual webinar. I don't know why it's a two-step process. It just is. So we're going with it for right now. We've got some updates coming this summer I'm super stoked about, but I don't want to talk about until they happen because I don't want to jinx anything. But for right now, this is what you get to do. Sign up in eBiz, then sign up and GoToWebinar so that you get the real login information. And I always like to do it like a day before at least so that when it's time to log into the webinar, I'm not scrambling around trying to find what do I need to log into to get the right login information, blah, blah, blah. But instead, I'm ready to go. Now here's your homework part. So you've watched this video, you've taken some notes, you've gotten some questions answered, you've gotten some new questions that you have. Go to your event planning worksheet. I made a typographical error there. Go to your event planning worksheet. Oh, dang. Backspace. Sorry about that. And start filling that in. Only fill in the parts that you're excited about. You don't have to fill in all the parts. Don't fill in the parts for other people. Just fill in the parts for you, your parts that you're really excited about, because then you're going to take a screenshot if you're doing it on your computer, or if you're not sure how to do that, take your cell phone that you have in your pocket and take a picture of the screen and email that to Elaine at etaylor@gsmain.org. So you're going to email that to etaylor@gsmain.org before the webinar, so that she gets it before the webinar. This is important. You want credit for this, you need to do the homework, right? Anybody who doesn't do this before, she's going to be chasing after you, because it's part of doing what you need to do. And so here we are at the end. I also am going to ask that before the Q&A, you write down 2 things that you want to do toward your next event in the next week. So what are 2 things that you want to do toward your next event in the next week? And you can refer to that event checklist grid to give yourself some ideas, because there are lots of things to do. We just saw them. Okay, I took a little bit more than an hour, but I think it's shorter than the last one that I recorded but didn't save, so I just have to remember to save this one, right? If you have any questions, you are welcome to email me at dwalker-elders@gsmain.org. That's D as in Dawn, walker-elders@gsmain.org. Or you can email Elaine at etaylor@gsmain.org, and we are happy to help you. And one or another of us will see you at the Q&A. Thanks for coming.